Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope we are all doing great. So if you can hear my voice, just type yes on the chat box. Just type yes on the chat box if you can hear me. Okay, I can see from Solomon, from Abiola. Okay, good evening. Good evening, and thank you for joining early. So let's just go straight and start while the others join. Jackson, I can see you. Good evening. While the others join, let's just go straight to start. So I welcome you once again to our webinar on business analytics and insight with Power BI. So my name is Augustine Omaku, and I'll be your host on this webinar. Let's just go quickly to start. Also, before we start, I would just like to tell us some basic things. So first of all, so just to avoid background noise and all of that, so let's just ensure our mic is always muted. So, and if you have any question, so you can type on the chat box. So I will see it and respond to you at the appropriate time. So thanks for joining once again. So now I'll be sharing a link on the chat box. So I just want you to fill it just to gauge our ability as a class, just to gauge our ability on how we can use Power BI. So I just want you to, if you take like between 3 to 5 seconds for you to actually get this link filled. So I'm going to quickly share the link on the chat box right now. So I've shared the link. So you can just fill it. It will take you about 3 to 5 seconds just to fill the link. So we can gauge the total ability of the class, and we will know how to proceed from there. So while we are filling the link, so on the chat box, I'll quickly take us through the course objective. So if I'm too fast, so you can type on the chat box and tell me I'm too fast, so I'll just slow down a bit. So we are going to look at, before the end of this week, we are doing 1 hour per day from today to Friday. So before the end of this week, so we should be able to implement Microsoft Power BI on all our reports in our organization. So, and part of our learning is that we'll be able to differentiate between the various Power BI technologies. So this includes Power Query, DAX. DAX is a data analysis expression, then M Code, and Power BI Online. And again, we're able to establish and know the basic rules associated with our data sheets or database or any form of data that we want to use for business analytics on Power BI and also any kind of application. Oh, doing this week as well, we'll be able to set up a data model from scratch in Power BI Desktop. After that, so we'll also be able to use calculate function and some advanced dark routines for solving advanced analytic challenges. So in this class, we are going to focus largely on time intelligence. So after that, overall, we should be able to improve our Power BI reports, choosing the right visuals, screens, and custom visualization, just to make our report different from the rest of the pack. Then lastly, we should be able to simulate an outcome. So any kind of outcome based on your business with what if analysis. So once more, thank you for joining again, while we are still expecting other people to join. But let's look at what is analytics that we are talking about. What is analytics? So I will say, just in simple terms, that analytics is using tools and techniques to turn data into meaningful and actionable business insights. So it must be meaningful, it must be actionable, and it must also add value. So without these three things, then we are not doing analytics. Meaningful, actionable, and it must add value. So today is our day one of this webinar. So what are we hoping to learn on this day one? So before I go to what we are hoping to learn on this on day one of this course, let me quickly look at let's quickly look at this link and see how we pulled. So in terms of the ability of the entire class. So I'm just quickly going to share my screen. So when I share my screen, we will look at how we pulled. So I have 8 responses right now. So let me share it. Okay, let me just wait a bit. I think around 17 people have joined. Let me wait a bit. For those who are just joining, so I shared the link earlier on the chat box. Just fill it so that we'll be able to gauge the entire ability of the class. So just to know how to proceed with this particular class. So I'm sharing my screen right now just to show us our objective for today. So if you can see my screen, just type yes on the chat box. Type yes. Once again, thank you for joining. Okay, okay. I can see some responses coming in. Okay, okay. So I'll take it that everyone can see my screen now. So here is our day one learning objectives. So first of all, we've defined what business analytics is. So we've looked at it. So we are going to look at the basic rules associated with our data sheet. Yeah, then data analysis with Power BI, the 7-step process. Then we are going to get and transform data using Power Query. So get the data, transform it, and load it with Power Query. So then we are going to create a calendar table with DAX. So a DAX calendar table. That is our learning objective for today. So let's quickly move to the next step, which is, let me ask this question. So what is more important for you to carry out an analysis? Is it your knowledge of the business, or is it the knowledge of the analytical methods, or is it both? So let me just get your feedback on the chat box. If it's the business you have to know about, you type 1. If it's the methods and the process of data analytics, you type 2. Then if it's both, you type 3. Okay. So let's quickly go to, let's see if we can see what's coming out of our charts. Okay, we can see 3, 3, 3. I think we are seeing a whole lot of 3. Okay, great, great. So the two works together really. So knowing the business and knowing the methods, so works together. So now let's move to our first item of the day, which is the basic rules of our data sheet or database. So what are the basic rules that we need to know? And I'm going to practicalize this. So let me bring this screen down and share an Excel file. So can we see this Excel file now? Okay, I think so. Okay. So I'm sharing an Excel file. So that is showing just a database. So we can see region, market, store, trade date, items sold, revenue, and units sold. So we are just, this the ideal data sets that you need to carry out data analysis. I'll tell you why it's ideal. So let's go through that process that understand what is to be and not what's not to be on your data set when you are carrying out an analysis. Number one, no empty rows. This is what I mean by empty rows. So for example, let me insert something here. This is an empty row. This is an empty row. No empty rows. So what is the implication of if you have an empty row? For example, for those of us that are Excel users, once you have an empty row, maybe you want to pull a pivot on this particular data set. Once you pull the pivot, you are going to capture just this three. So the remaining data will be lost. That's the impact of an empty row on a data set. So secondly, no empty columns. So this is what I mean by an empty column. I insert something here. The column is empty. So if I'm to carry out an analysis on this data, I'm just going to capture column A and column B. And if these two errors are in this particular data set, I'm just going to capture just this that I've highlighted. So thirdly, every unique data type must have its own column. What I mean by that is that every unique data type, for example, my trade date is dates. You cannot have dates on a column and you have an attribute related to region or an attribute related to market on that same column. So that is prone to errors. So, and again, for every data you are going to collect, date column is very, very important. Date column is like one of the single important columns in our data set. Dates is very, very critical because with dates, there's a whole lot of possibility that you can get from that data set. Again, another rule again is that no summaries anywhere on your data set or data table. What I mean is that, for example, on this revenue part, I have a total. On my unit sold, I have a total right here. So it's absolutely unacceptable. This can go as much as skewing your reports. For example, where you're supposed to be getting like total sales, like let me say 200. So this additional 50, we take it to 250. So that is the impact of that. The other one is that one single row of headers, very critical. Like for example, for this particular report, I have one single row of headers. So let me insert something here. This is unacceptable. This is two rows of headers, one row, second row. Region is coming up 2 times. So this is also not acceptable. So another one again, the last rule is that no obstruction. This one is again very, very unacceptable. For example, let me insert a column here. So in this column, I now highlight everything. I now do things like where is that? I now do merge and center. So I now merge. So this is a table, so merge is not coming up. I just merge these columns. Yeah. Merging these columns there is like cutting off the whole data set. So I've seen some data sets where some people merge columns just to differentiate that, okay, this is for a separate date, this is for another date. You can actually do that using inserting another column for dates. So if you keep to these 7 basic rules, then you have no issues analyzing your data. And again, once we get a data set, let's check for this kind of things before we start doing our analysis. So let's move from there. Let's go to our pool. Let's see our results. Let's close this. Don't save. Then let's see our results. Let's see. Okay. Okay. We have 13 responses now. So from our responses, okay, 23% of the class says, okay, I'm new to Power BI, entirely new. While around 7.7% of the class are saying that, okay, I'm very good with Power BI. So that is great. So I think majority of the class, so around maybe around 70% of the class, or over 70% of the class, are still new to Power BI. So we are going to start from the basics, really. So first of all, let's even know Power BI. What is Power BI? So Power BI is a Microsoft tool for data analysis. So Power BI is from Microsoft and is designed for data analysis. And what is even BI? What is BI on its own? BI is business intelligence. And business intelligence is the process of collecting, analyzing, and monitoring information that you would like to compare and track over time for your company. The main goal of a BI tool is to help make better decisions. That's just the main goal of a BI tool, to help make better decisions. The other question is that how do I download Power BI? How do I download it? There are two ways. You either download it from the web via www.microsoft.com, www.powerbi.com. So you can download it there. Let me take you straight to that to the site. So this is okay. Bring this down. Take this off. Okay, this is where you can download Power BI. So you will go to Microsoft Power BI Desktop when you come to this site. Then you can see if you want to download from App Store, from Microsoft Store, you just click on this download. It will redirect you to the store. But if you want to download via the web, you go to this advanced download options, click on it, advanced download options, then you select a language and download. So you select the language, so English, and download. You can look at the install instruction and system requirement as well. So before you download, I also share this link on the chat, so that for those people who want to just take it and download later, can do that. So let's move to the next step, which is the 7-step, I call it the 7 pillars of Power BI. That is a 7-step process of designing your reports in Power BI. So first of all, you have to get your data. Then secondly, you have to transform the data, shape the data to what you want the data to look like before you load it. Then thirdly, you have to model your data, connect your data all together to speak as one unit. Then fourth, you have to create measures or calculated column to summarize your data. Then 5, you have to visualize that data to show it in nice charts like what we have here, like the visualizations we have here. So all these 5 processes, we can do them on Power BI desktop, which is what I just showed you how to download. Then there is a 2-step process that is left, which is sharing your reports with your stakeholders and automating that report. This is done in Power BI service. Power BI service is the web version of Power BI. You can access that by going to www.powerbi.com. www.powerbi.com. That is the web service for Power BI. So Power BI desktop is free. When you download, it's free. Then you can use it for to design your analysis. It's when you want to share and automate your report that you have to use the Power BI Pro license to actually do all those sharing and with everyone in your organization. So if we are following to this extent, let's just type 1 on the chat box. If you want me to repeat anything, just type your question. If you are following, if we should still continue, just type 1. Okay. You can see some response coming in. Okay. Nice. So we will go straight into the practical aspects. Let's just show you what we want to achieve, that everyone should be able to design this after our 5 days of meeting. So this is the dashboard. This is sales and revenue. So we see all these charts. So we can see by supervisor. So by supervisor, we can also see by supervisor, by product and everything. We can also do a drill through this report. So this is for this supervisor. We can see a tooltip just to show us how the supervisor is doing across products. So we can see this tooltip here on this trend. But we can also see a drill through for each sales staff. We can see a drill through to all what they are doing. So per product, like for Chukuma now, we can see what he's doing. We can go down and see all the products that he has sold so far, the gross margin and everything related to that product. Let's go back on this. Yes. So we can see, we can do drill throughs, we can do tooltips, and we can compare against targets and all of that. So same thing. And also look at this feature, the page navigator. We can navigate from one page to another using the page navigator. Since you're in Power BI desktop, it has to be control and click. So it takes us here. We can see for expenses, we can see what is going on there. We can see the total expenses for the year. So the achievement against budget, the monthly trend, and the distribution by expense type. So we can see that right here as well. And we can see these red things here, comparing this against budgets and all of that. We can select individual months and interact with the whole chart. So just interact with everything and give us that feedback. So really nice. The third one is simulation, financial simulation. It can really be a simulation across any kind of it can be a sales simulation, it can be a financial simulation, it can be a budget simulation, and any kind of simulation. We can use this for it. We can see what happens when we tweak our scenarios, reduce sales by some certain percentage, increase expenses by some certain percentage, and increase expenses by some certain percentage, and also increase sales by some certain percentage. So we will see how all this works, how it interacts with each other. So let's assume you are going for a meeting. So you can't keep adjusting all these charts. So we create a feature called bookmarks. With these bookmarks, You can return it back to default by clicking on the 0 button, return it back to default, or you can click on predefined scenarios. For example, my scenario one, I can click on my scenario one and it gives me my, if I increase my cost by this amount, like for example, the scenario one is if I increase my expenses by 50% and I increase my sales, my items sold by 8%, I will still make 50% of my income of the previous year. So this can also be applied in, okay, let me say things like if I increase my costs, or there are many scenarios that you can apply it on depending on the kind of business that you run. But I will bring several use cases that you can run this simulation on before the end of the class. Okay, so let's start getting our hands dirty. This is a finished product, so we close this. Don't save. So we close this. Let's open a, let's go to desktop. Okay. And open our blank Power BI file for this webinar. So now we are going to get data. Power BI has multiple data sources where you can get data from. So you can get data from Excel, you can get from SQL server, you can get from a text file, you can get from web. There are up to 50 data sources that you can get data from using Power BI. So for this, for the sake of for performance and everything, so for performance sake, we are going to get data from Excel within our desktop. So this is, let me just explain to you what this screen that you are seeing is. So this is Power BI desktop. So on Power BI desktop, you have the canvas. That is, the canvas is what we are looking at. Yeah, so it's the report canvas. It's called report. And we have the data. This data is where you see all the data set you've imported into Power BI. So if we click on the data now, you can see for the report, you can see that it's empty. It's telling us to add a report. If we click on this data tab now, you can see it's empty because we've not brought anything in. And if you click on the third one is model. If you click on model, we can see it's also empty. So it's just showing us a layout, but it's empty. Yeah, we've not created any model. So now let's start by getting data. So as we keep going, I want this class to be fully practical. I think the time for theory is over. Let's just start getting our hands dirty. So let's go and get data from Excel. We can do that in multiple ways. You can see import data from Excel. You can see right here. You can see Excel here under your home tab. You can see Excel here. Or you can see get data. So from multiple places. So let's just click get data and click on Excel. So it navigates us to where we want to get to our local system. So now I'm going to get this data from Power BI webinar dataset. So the data we are going to use, let me just explain the data to you. The data contains sales from a grocery store, contains sales. So, and it also contains the costs of that same store, sales, the cost, and all the products that that store sells. It also has the staff and the channel of sales and so many of that. So this part that we are now is the navigator. This navigator is the Power Query navigator. I know your question is, how do we go from Power BI to Power Query? So Power Query is like an add-on. Let me not say it's an add-on. It's an external version of Power BI that you use to clean and shape your data set. It's within Power BI, but it's not at the surface. It's at the back end. It's like your back end. You use it to clean up your data source before bringing it into Power BI. So this is all the data source, the data we are going to work with. So I'm going to select everything. Since we are working with with these 5 data source, I'm going to select everything, then import it to Power BI. If you are working with this and you are not picking all the data source, you can leave it on tick. So, but in this scenario, I'm picking everything. So I will not just load it. Yeah. So it is just showing me a preview of the data source, but I will not load it because I still need to do some cleanup on this data source. So I'll hit transform data. So that will take me to my full Power Query window. So this is processing the queries, and it's going to take me to Power Query window. So on this Power Query window, I'm going to do, we are going to do all the cleanup and all the transformations that we need to carry out our analysis. So now, let's start with how they are arranged. And another thing I like to do is to just rename the table so that I can see them in serial order. When I'm working with the data set, I won't have to be going up and down to be looking for that particular table. So this, for our budget expenses, for our expense budget, I'll just call it, let me call expenses 01. So call expenses 01 expenses. I'm just renaming it. So 01. So I call expense budget. Let me call it, let me rename it. Call it 02 expense budget. Expense budget. So let's clean up expenses. Let's clean up expenses. Let me put the space in between. Let's clean up expenses. Okay. On our expenses, we can see the cost code. We can see the cost description and everything related to the expenses. So anytime we get data into Power Query, the first thing we should do is to come to our applied steps. Here is the, after anything you do on this table, we come here. So this is what Power BI has automatically done for us. So now we are going to remove this last step, which is change type. Change type means it changes the format of the data on its own. So we won't want Power BI to do that for us. We want to actually go to the data set and see how we can fit the formats to what we know that the format is. So let's take this off. Let's take change type off. So the first thing we will do, the other thing we do with this data set is that we have this column here, that is column 5. All we can see here is null. So this will not add any value to our data set. So we'll remove this null. So we'll take it off. Remove it. So for this cost code, we can see the cost code and we can see the cost description that is related to this cost code. So we select, for this cost code, we know that the code is in text format. So anything code in like it can be like a branch code, it can be for any kind of code. In Power BI, it should be in text, but since Power BI is seeing it as a number, it will automatically just transform into a number. Since we know it's text, we can just manually change it to text. So we come here, we can right click and say change type and make it text. Yeah. So this, let's look through the remaining data set. We can see cost description, this is text, this is date, and this is number. So for these that are very deterministic, that we know that, okay, Power BI should easily know what this is. We will just select one of them. Instead of just changing them one by one, we select one of them. We can hit Control and Shift together. Just hold it down, select the last column, then come to transform and do dictate data type. So once you hit dictate data type, automatically it detects it and it changes it to the data type. So for this is the cleanup we have to do here. So immediately after doing this cleanup, we will create a dimension table. There is what we call, okay, this will bring us to fact and dimension table. So what is fact table? Fact table is a table that constantly updates. It's a transactions table. It's a transactional table. While a dimension table is more of like a category table. For example, the dimension table we can bring out from this particular table is cost description and cost code. A cost code is related to a particular cost description, so it doesn't change. So that are easy targets for dimensions. So let's quickly create a dimension table from this particular expenses fact table. So to create that dimension table, I will duplicate this. I'll make this my number 3 table. Number 3 table. I'll call it, since a dimension table, I'll call it dim. Dim stands for dimension. I'll call it dim expenses. Dim expenses. So I'll call it dim expenses. Then what I'm interested in on this table is the cost code and the cost description to create this dimension. So I select the two and do remove other columns. So other columns go off. Then I right click and also remove duplicates. So we can see our unique cost code to its cost description. So this is what we will use to dimension our data later on when we get to Power BI. So the next thing, we are done with expenses. One more thing with expenses before we are done. So now we have the cost description. So we won't need the cost description on the fact table anymore, because we already have a dimension table that we can dimension this cost description by. So we can take this description off. So for those of us that are not clear with this yet, when we get to Power BI, when we are doing our modeling, you will be clear with the fact and dimension table. So now let's move to the budget. Let's see what is on this budget. Let's see the columns. So also we have dates, we have cost code, we have cost description, and we have the expense budget. So this expense budget, we can decide to change it to. You can also change your columns. You can change the name. You can rename it. You can rename your column. Let's change this to expense, maybe expense budget amount. So you can rename it. Now, but we forgot to do something. We didn't remove our change type. So always do that. Always remove the change type. So now we know our cost code is text. We can also move our columns from one place to the other. Let's use this one as a sample test. So we just click on the column and drag across. Just move it to the end. So we know this is a text field. So there are multiple ways of doing things on Power Query. Instead of right-clicking and changing it to text, I can come up here under transform. I can come to data type and I change to text. So it works. So the rest of the data, so instead of holding Shift and Control and highlighting everything and just clicking on the end, we can also do Control A, hold Control, remove the first column that we don't want to do anything with. Then we can come to transform, then hit detect data type. Then everything automatically change and fits to its format. So since we have a dimension table for cost code and cost description, we won't also be needing cost description on this budget side. So we remove. We right click and remove. Okay, nice. So just to get your feedback, if you are following type 1, if you are lost in somewhere. If you need further clarification, type 2. So let's get a sense of where we are and what we are doing. If you are moving too fast, let's just get a sense from everybody. So let's go to the chat box. So, okay. For what I can see, most of us are following. Oh, please do repeat the 5 steps. Don't worry. I will share the materials. I'll share the resource. You get all these resources after the webinar. Okay, let me see if anyone has any other question. Okay, none for now. So if you have a question, you can put it. Oh, I can't see the screen, but can't hear anything. Odion, now can you hear? If you can hear, type yes, so that we know that you are following. Okay. So 111. So who is typing? Who is not following? Let's know so that we can give you further clarification. Okay, so So I assume everybody's following. So let's go to, okay, we've cleaned up expense budget, expenses, and we've created a dimension file for expense. So the next thing now is to go to our sales table. So we call this, let's call it 04, our fourth table, 04 sales. So it has done this change type for us again. So we just take it off. Take the change type off. So we look at this table critically. When we look at it critically, we can see all the columns. We can see sales date, item ID, and all of that. So we know this item ID is an ID. So it should also be a text field, really. So staff ID should also be a text field. So we can click on the 2 columns and just kind of move them to the start column. So just to make our formatting easier, right? So the same way we have been doing. So now, these two we've highlighted. So let's take out change type. So I also forgot to do that. Let's just delete that step. Take out change type. For these two, because why I'm taking out change type is that for these IDs, there are some IDs that might start with 0. So when it has changed the type, when you change the type to number, it takes the 0 off. So that is why I always ensure I remove that step, change type. So now, this particular column, we come to data type and change it to text. Same process. Then we highlight one column. You can hold Control and Shift, click on the last column. It highlights everything. Then we do detect data type and automatically detect it. The next step is to create, we have items, item ID, and well, we just have the ID, but we don't have the name of the items, right? And for here as well, we have staff ID, we have their sales channel, we have the salesperson and the supervisor. I think that is another good dimension. So we will duplicate the sales table twice because we want to create 2 dimensions. One dimension file for items, another dimension for staff. So let's duplicate this table. Right click, duplicate this, right click, and duplicate this again. So we'll call this table, we'll call it dim. Let's call this 05 dim staff. Yeah, dim staff. So we are concerned about the staff ID, and so we can just hold Control, select all those columns that are related to staff ID. In this case, we have supervisor there, we have a sales channel there, it's related to the staff ID, and we have the salesperson himself who has this particular ID. So after selecting these three columns that we need, we can right click and remove other columns. So we are left with these three columns. The next thing, as we usually do when creating a dimension file, we remove duplicates. So then it returns unique staff in this particular retail store. So we can see the duplicates are gone, and we can see the unique staff in that organization by their supervisor and by those doing digital sales. We can also reorder salesperson, supervisor, and channel. So those doing digital sales, those are in the digital sales team, and those that are in the non-digital sales team. So we can see all that from here. So the other dimension that we will create is the product dimension. So we'll call this 06 dim products, DIM underscore products. Okay, DIM underscore products. So now we just have the item ID right here. We don't have any other thing that tells us that this is the product name. Okay, I think we have the item ID and which other thing? Nothing else, just the item ID. So this does not tell us anything about this product. It just gives us the item ID. So, but we know, so from our database, from another database that we know that any item ID that is between 2005 and 7005 is food and beverage. So anyone between 7501 to 15,000 is toiletries. So based on that information, we will create a dimension file for this product and we will put all those names. So let's quickly do that. So for this dimension, I only need the item ID. Right click, then remove other columns. Remove other columns right here. So remove other columns. The other thing we do is also to right click and remove duplicates. So it returns unique item ID. So now, this is the question. How would we put these names here? That brings us to another interesting feature of Power BI Desktop. So it's called what is it called? It's called inserting conditional column. Okay, I just remember that we actually have our product list on this particular data set. So let's remove this. We have our product list here. Sorry for that. Let's delete this query. So that is how you can also delete query. That is how to delete query. Let's go to our product list. Sorry for that. We actually have a product list here that contains the item ID, the product name, the selling price, and so all those other information. So let's also remove the change type, right? So again, we know that this item ID is text. Then the rest can actually, so we call this after 05, the next table is 06. That is 06. So that is just to give us direction to what we are doing, 06. So as we usually do, we can do control. This column 5 is not giving us any information, so we take it off. We also highlight everything. So not highlight everything, Control A, then remove item ID. So highlight Control A, hold Control, remove item ID, then do detect data type. So it has detected. So it's showing us our selling price and showing us our cost price right here. Now, as what I was saying, we have the product name. I think we have up to like 700 600 products here. But we want to narrow it down to like a product category. We know that anything from like what I explained earlier, from 2 to 75 is food and beverage. Then from 45,001 to 55,000 is alcoholic drinks. So let's quickly just do that with an add conditional column. You might meet some of these challenges maybe during your work in the office or somewhere else. So this is how to solve it. You just go to add column, add conditional column. It's called conditional column. So Power Query has made it so easy that instead of writing a whole lot of formula, all you just need to do is just type it. Let me just stop there, just type it. So let me call this product category. Product category. So now, yes, I've forgotten one thing. I've changed this particular item ID to text. For me to be able to take that range from 25 to 75 and all of that, I have to change it back to number. So change type. That is it. You can change to text, change back to number. So change it to whole number, right? Now come to my add conditional column. So I call this product category. Product category. Gory. So if item ID is an if statement, if item ID, so let's use is less than. So we know that from 25 to 75 is food and beverage. So we say if it's less than 7501, it should return FOOD, food and beverage. So we add again another clause. If item ID is less than 15,001, that is 15,001, what should they return? That should return toiletries. Oh, sorry, caps lock is on. I think I have this list somewhere. Instead of typing it, let me just go and pick that particular list. Pick the list, okay? So that is toiletries. The next one is pastries. It's toiletries. So then we add, if item ID is less than, the next number is 20,001. So give us what? Pastries. Pastries. That's PAS. So pardon me for my spelling. PAS, pastries. Then the other one, if it's less than, if item ID is less than 25,001, 25,001, that should give us perfumes and perfume oils. So I'll just call it perfumes and oils. So perfume and oils. And if it's less than 35,001, add another clause. Item ID is less than 35,001. So I call this disinfectant. So this is disinfectant. So the cap lock is on. Disinfectants. Then I add again, item ID is less than 45,001. Then this is soft drinks. Soft drinks. Then less than 55,001. Item ID. We are just repeating the same process. Less than 55,001. That will be alcoholic drinks. Alcoholic drinks. Then I add again item ID less than 60,001. So this is body cream and lotions. So we just call this body cream and lotions. Then if item ID less than 63,001, 63,001. So I call this spices. Spices. So else, that is the last one. Anything else, after all this, anything else is electronics. Okay, that is it. Okay, you can see it right here. The product category, everything all filled up. Nice. Then we can, this is in any format. Anytime you see ABC123 on Power BI, you know that is in any format. So you have to change it to either text or number. For this particular category, is text. So I come to change type, I change it to text. So we are done with products. But one last thing, this item ID that we changed to number, we'll come back and change type to text. So all our steps are applied here. Yeah. So they are showing everything we've done right here. So the next one is our revenue budget. Let's see what is there. Let's see what is there. So yeah, revenue budget. So we call this 007 revenue budget. So 07 revenue budget. It's just to, so I will get context of what we are doing. So I take this change type off as usual. For this, you can see the staff ID. You can see so many nulls. No. Apparently, this 1374, this is his target across different items, right? But on the database, it's just showing it for one item. So there's a feature in Power BI that we call fill down. So when we do the fill down, it actually fills up all the null with the number corresponding to before the next number. So let's quickly use that feature. I think we have it on our transform tab. Transform, then you go to fill. You can see it, we select that column, staff ID, then we go to fill and we fill down. So you can see it, this 1734, 1733 till it gets to the next number. So that's how it fills down until the end. So in case you have something like this that is showing null in some places, in some rows, and this is how you take care of it. So now, we will do our normal cleanup. We know that staff ID and item ID are text formats. So right click based on our understanding of the data. We'll call this text. Then we click on this month and budget. Then we detect data type for those. We trust Power BI to actually detect that data type for us. So nice work. That is all. This is, we've done some cleanups using Power Query. Now we are going to take this data, connect this data to Power BI. How do we do that? We come to our home tab, we do close and apply, and we do close and apply. So this automatically connects that data to Power BI. You can see there are pending changes in your queries that haven't applied. So the changes are applying. This is how Power Query works. Your data might be more messy than this, yeah, but it's still the same step. just to understand the process of using Power Query and know what to do when the time comes. You can see detecting relationship. So it's automatically detecting relationship. Oh, now our tables are fully here. We can see them here. Expense, expense budget, dimension of expenses, sales, staff list, product list, and revenue budget. So our time is up for today. Should we just spare another 10 minutes creating our dates table, or should we continue tomorrow? If we should spare another 10 minutes, type 1. If we should continue tomorrow, type 2. It's a 1-hour class, really. Okay, let's see the chat. So we'll go with the class. Okay, 1. I can see 1. I can see a whole lot. Okay, 2. I can see 1, 2. 2. 2. I can see 2. Okay, the 1s and 2s are still dragging. Okay, so we have 2. Okay, so it seems that we are on a tie between 1 and 2. So now, today, what part of our objective did we cover? So we covered how to get data and how to transform and load this data into Power BI. So I think we have more of tools that said we should continue tomorrow. We have more of tools. So let's respect the overall opinion of the class and just continue tomorrow. So what's your experience so far? So just the feedback, your experience so far. If the class is going on well, type 1. If you feel that there is more for us to improve on, type 2, or you can send your feedback. I will drop let me see. I will drop an email or something that I will receive your feedback through, so that we will know how to improve. Anything you want us to improve. Let me put my personal email on the chat box so that you can send your feedback. Okay. To everyone. Okay. That is my personal email. You can send your feedback there, or any questions. If you have any question, you can also send it there as well. Oh, but tomorrow I will design something that you can actually put your questions. So if you I'm seeing more of ones. There are more of ones now. So let me just crave the indulgence of the class to just create that date table. It should just take us 10 minutes. So let's just quickly create it. So just 10 minutes. So okay. Farouk. Yeah. So let's quickly just create a date table and just close for today. So normally, a whole lot of people that have users of Power BI have seen create their date table from Power Query. But no, we won't do that because there is a whole lot of limitation in creating date table from Power Query. Your whole model is not syncing with that particular, because you're going to create the date table from just the static data from one table. If the data doesn't update, then you are in trouble. So now we are going to create a date table using DAX. Very interesting. So to do that, we will go to new table. Just click on new table. So we are going to be writing some formulas. This now also takes us to introducing us to calculated columns. So we are going to be writing some formulas here. So I will call my date table dim calendar, because date is also a dimension. Calendar. So, and the formula is also to create a date table. It's also calendar. It's called calendar. So just type it in, calendar. then tab. So your start date. So you also, that is why understanding the business is also good. So you select your date table, your table that has the widest range of data. For example, for this particular data set, our revenue table, our sales table, sorry, has the highest range of data set because this particular store sells every day. So, but they do not spend every day, really. So we take our start date. Our start date will be our minimum date. Minimum date from sales table. So we say minimum is telling us to what column do we want to pick from. So we want to pick from sales, sales, sales dates. Then comma is telling us to enter our end date. So that will be max, min and max. Take this is taking the range from the data, the min date and the max date, and it just plots the range. This max, we are taking max, we are taking sales table, calendar, that is dates, sales table dates. Then we close the bracket and enter. So this gives us the dates. The date from the start date to the end date. So this is date. So now I'm seeing date time right here. So I don't want.
Can I have it now?
Please, can you mute, please? Okay, it's muted. Okay. So on our date table, we are saying date time, but we just want date. We can either come to our data type here, just change it to date. Just need date. Yeah. So this is the date. If we feel that this format is too long, we can come to the format right here. So, and just change it to a shorter format. Maybe something like this. Something like this. Day, month, year. Right. Oh. We have our dates now. The next thing we are going to create is see this date, this calendar table is going to be really, really comprehensive. And the next thing we create is our week. So we want to create, in case we want to dissect the data by week. So we come here, we go to new column, we click on new column, click on new column. So we call this week. So the week we want to create is a week such that irrespective of when the week starts, or even irrespective of where the month starts, so it must count 7 days before it calls it a week. So we first create a number for that week so that we can use it to sort that week category. We create a number first. So we start with day just to bring out the day on the data. So day, dim calendar, we call from the day from our calendar table, dim calendar date. Let's see what that gives us. So this brings out the day. Then what we want to do is to actually add some days to this day, then divide it by the number of days in a week so that we can get 7 days every week. So we are going to add 3 to this. Yeah, going to add 3 to this. We're going to close this bracket, close it here as well. And divide it by 7. What this does for us is that it automatically changes this date into week. into weeks. For example, 8th of January 2020 is week 2 of January. If you see it is taken from 8th to 14th, then it starts from 15th and start calculating week for week 3. Then for week 4, after 21st, it starts from 22nd. So this is what we want to achieve, to actually give us 7 days in a week, irrespective of when the month started. So now, the other thing we are going to do is that we are just going to change this to a number. So we are going to change it to a number, to a whole number, and round it up. So because this is still in decimal number, to change it to a whole number, we will do, let me bring this to another line so that it will be readable. So let me bring it to another line. So to bring it to another line, it's just shift and enter, just to bring your code to the other line so it's readable. So now we'll do, there's a formula we call integer. That changes this to, I'll just put it here. I'll just say integer, int, integer. And this, our calculation, is the number. So this int. So this just changes it to whole number for us. So I still want to round this up to just be sure that the numbers, or let me not round it up first. You will see the error that we will get when we try to run some codes. Let me not round it up. So I will just get the experience and know why we do the rounding up. Okay. So this is, sorry, I mistakenly touched something. We will still come back to this formula. Let's move ahead. So this is week num. So we will include another column, a new column that we call week. That is, we just want to add. So if we are familiar with concatenate, so we just want to add 2 to WK. So I will just say that it's week. So we call this, let's call it week. Let's just call it week. WEEK. That is week. So this whole formula that we wrote just now, which is int, same formula, int. Yeah. So what is the number? Our number is day, dim calendar date. Sorry, dim calendar date. Then comma, dim calendar date, bracket close, +3, bracket closed, divided by 7. Yeah. So now close it, enter. So before we can add this, or before we can concatenate it, concatenate works for text only. You can see that this is a decimal number, right? This decimal number here is the same thing as this one here. So what we would do is to, if you are familiar with users of Excel, so you round up, you round all this number, round it to 0 digits. So it automatically rounds up this number. So it rounds this up. That is it. So what we are going to do now is to add week to WK, to this particular code. So instead of using concatenate, there's another formula which we are familiar with as well. So let me just bring this here. It's just to, okay. I'll use my inverted commas, inverted week, and this. That's all we need. Then it's rounded up for us. WK and the total formula. You can see it round it up nicely. So now, the benefit of rounding up. Let's say, for example, this week, when we start showing it in Power BI, they might not be oddly. So let's sort it by this week number and see. Let's say sort column by week num. Let's see if it goes. You can see sort by another column. We can't sort week column by week num. There can't be more than one unique value, blah, 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 blah. It's returning an error. So that is the essence of rounding this up, because it's seeing decimal numbers. So if we round up now, let's round up and we do that process. Round to 0 and enter. So let's redo that process. Sort column by, okay, let's go to this week. We want to sort week by week number. So let's go to sort column by week number. So you see that it will, because we've rounded it up, it worked nicely. So this is week now. The next one we are going to create it. So we are going to pick up the pace. So let's insert, let's say new column. Let's create month. But before we create month, we will do month number. So I will use the month number to sort the month. So let's say month. Let's say month underscore number. So that will be equal to, we'll just call it month formula, the formula for month, calendar, dim calendar date. So select dim calendar date, enter. Oh, because we are using the formula for month directly, we don't need to sort, we don't need to round up, because it will automatically return the whole number. So let's insert a new column again. Let's enter the month name. So month name. So again, month, or you can just call it month, equal to. So now if you want to get the month name, we have to use a formula that we call format. Format, then dim calendar date. Then the format we want to get here is just to show us a short month. It's MMM. So that is for, so shall give us a short month. So it doesn't matter whether it's in capital or small letter, it works. Nice. So we can see our month column there. We can now go and say sort column. We are sorting the month column now. We are sorting it by month number, right? It's just to make it orderly on the charts when we are trying to do some trends. So now after month, what is the next one? So let's quickly create quarter. Let's quickly create a quarter, half year, then year. Then that'll be all. Let's insert a new column. So if you have this, the purpose of creating this particular calendar table is if you have a request that says, do this by month, it's easy. Do this by quarter, it's easy. Do this by half year, it's easy. Do this year on year, it's easy. Do this by date, it's easy. So now let's quickly create our normal practice. Let's create quarter number. That is quarter number. That will be equal to, there's a formula for quarter, it's called quarter. So we can see it there. We pick the date is the calendar date. So very easy. Calendar date, pick the calendar date. Okay. That is for quarter. Also, this returns a whole number since is a custom formula on Power BI. It's not derived like what we did for week. So new column again. There's actually a week formula on Power BI, but it's called week num. but the week norm does not return 7 days in a week. Yeah. So now we go to quarter. That is quarter itself now. Quarter equal to, we'll do the same thing. We just want to add Q or QTR, anyone, maybe QTR. We just want to add it to, and yeah, quarter calendar dates. I feel Power BI formulas are quite easier and quite powerful than compared to Excel. So quarter number, quarter. So that will also return all the quarters. We also do the same practice, sort column by, sort quarter by, we sort it by quarter number. Really nice. The next thing again is half year. For half year, we might have to do some little derivation, but also a simple formula. So we'll go to new column. So we call this half year number. Half year number. That will be equal to. So what we want to do now is to divide quarter number by 2 and round it up. Yeah. So let's quickly do that. We call up quarter number, that is dim calendar quarter number. Calendar quarter number. So we call up dim calendar quarter number and divide it by 2. Yeah, to return the half year. If it's within the first and second quarter, it will return 1. But if it's within the third and fourth quarter, it will return 2. Now, dividing this by 2, you'll see some 0.5, because this one is in 0 decimal. Let me just, because it's in 0 decimal place, it's showing 1. If let me make it 2 decimal place, you see some decimals along coming out of this. Make it 2 decimal place. Okay, you can see it 0.50 and all of that. So now, to solve this, let's just round it up to, just round it. This to 0 decimal place. Enter. So round it up. You see 2 quarters. So this is showing 1.00. So let me change it to 0 decimal place. I can also change this to whole number as well. Let it not be decimal number. So whole number, yeah, whole number. So that is our half year number. So just to add H to it, we'll insert another new column and call it half year. So the purpose of putting this half year number is actually to sort. That's just the purpose, nothing more. So add a column. And we call this half year itself. Half year. This will be equal to our normal practice. I do H. Do H. Let me capital H. Then I add the calendar. I call up half year number. That's calendar dates. Let's go down. Where is half year number? Yeah, half year number. Tab. Just adds it, makes it H1 and H2. Yeah. See that H1 or is H2? Half year. So let's just see, you can see here, H1, H2. So if we So maybe we'll just investigate the calendar table tomorrow. Let me just quickly create year. So new column again, year. New column. Okay. Call this year. Y-E-A-R, year. Oh, the first is so year will be equals to, is still year. Yeah. Year, calendar, dates. We'll extract our year. Okay. So for year, we'll leave year as number. So we don't need to create a year number. So just leave it that way. Okay. We didn't sort our H1 using H1 number. So let's just quickly do that. Sort by half year by half year number. Okay. That is all for the class today. That is all for the class today. Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your time. So we will meet the same time tomorrow, 5 p.m. tomorrow. I'll also ensure I send the reminders so that you just put it in your calendar and not forget. So thank you very much for joining. See you again, same time tomorrow.
Thank you, Augustine.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, I can see Paul said share the recordings. Yes, I will put the recording on YouTube. So it will be on YouTube. I will send the link. I'll send the YouTube link. Also, tomorrow, I will also send a form that you will drop your personal emails so that I'll just email the YouTube link to everybody. Yeah, so I will use that as a communication. We'll use it to communicate. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Have a good night rest.